Tonight, a long line of severe storms is heading east. They left a trail of destruction through North Texas last night. Hail the size of baseballs fell in Denton County.
We have an update tonight on the weather that's impacting millions of Americans across a huge part of this country. At the start of the spring season, the radar is lit up tonight. Severe storms causing damage in parts of Texas, Alabama, Tennessee, Arkansas, and to the north they're also dealing with torrential rains wiping out roads, triggering floods, mudslides in parts of Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky. To top it all off, would you believe fresh snow on the ground in the upper Midwest, up to a foot in parts of the state of Minnesota.
Here in downtown Minneapolis, we got 10.5 inches of snow. Surrounding suburbs saw anywhere from 11 to 12 inches. And in some of those areas, that's the most April snow they've seen in more than 30 years.
Heavy rains, not unusual in Argentina at this time of year, but it's 4 decades since the inhabitants of the western province of Neuquén have seen anything like this. At least 2,000 people in several regions have had to flee their homes amid bad weather that's made driving impossible and walking not much easier. Public transport's ground to a halt in many areas and schools have closed. No deaths have been reported.
Farm workers in Chile had a shock when they checked on stock after a powerful thunderstorm. 64 dairy cows from 2 farms were dead, having been struck by lightning. The farmer's vet says he has never experienced anything like this before and that he feels sorry for the animals, the source of their employment.
Another earthquake has hit a country along the Pacific Rim, this time in Nicaragua, where a strong 6.1 magnitude earthquake rattled cities Thursday. ABC reports more than a dozen people were injured after the quake shook cities like Managua and Nagarote. According to Al Jazeera, many of these injuries came from falling walls and ceilings.
Officials say they are still searching for those injured while dealing with landslides blocking major roads.
At least 500 homes were damaged in the hard-hit town of Nagarote alone.
Just as residents of Managua were clearing up the damage from an earthquake on Thursday, a second quake struck Nicaragua on Friday. Measuring 6.6 on the Richter scale, it was felt as far away as San Jose in Costa Rica. The government revised the number of those injured in Thursday's quake from 23 to 200, and 1 person was reported to have died. The government had evacuated buildings and schools were closed on Friday as thousands of aftershocks continue to rattle the country.
Residents in northern Queensland survey the damage after Cyclone Ita swept across northeastern Australia. With winds of up to 230 kilometres per hour, Ita packed a punch. But Australians here escaped the worst after the Category 5 storm weakened.
Heavy rain blasted the township as trees twisted under the savage Category 4 storm.
Cyclone Ita finally moved back out to sea last night, but not before lashing the Queensland coast one last time. The popular tourist destinations of Airlie Beach and the Whitsundays were also hit by gale force winds and hundreds of millimetres of flooding rain.
A magnitude 7.1 earthquake struck off the coast of Papua New Guinea Friday morning. The U.S. Geological Survey placed the epicenter 35 miles southwest of the town of Penguna on Bougainville Island. Initial reports put the quake's magnitude at 7.3, but the USGS later downgraded its severity to 7.1. There have not been serious injuries or damage reported as a result of the quake. The USGS issued another report later in the morning as a second magnitude 6.5 Timbler struck further off the coast.
A magnitude 7.6 earthquake has hit near the flood-ravaged Solomon Islands. A tsunami warning has been issued for the Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea, New Caledonia and surrounding areas. A tsunami watch was also in effect for Fiji, Australia, Indonesia, Guam and nearby areas. The quake comes as relief efforts are underway in the capital Honiara as the city struggles in the aftermath of a devastating flood. At least 16 people lost their lives in the floods.
While you were sleeping, central Idaho rocked by a rare earthquake. Its center less than 200 miles away from Boise. The 4.9 magnitude quake was strong enough to fling things off walls, but didn't do any serious damage. No one was hurt. It's the largest earthquake to hit the area since 2005.
A massive deadly fire is still burning this morning in the Chilean port city of Valparaiso. Firefighters thought they had it under control this weekend, but high winds kicked the flames back up. At least 12 people are known dead. 500 are hurt. At least 2,000 homes are destroyed. Some 10,000 people were forced out of the city.
Ambulance crews treated residents for smoke inhalation as the fire engulfed block after block.
Firefighters battled the blaze in the coastal city of Valparaiso, but struggled to contain the fire due to high winds. The fierce winds whipped the flames from house to house as neighbours fled in fear, while others on nearby hills stood and watched in horror.
We got a lot of phone calls about a bright light flashing across the sky last night.
We confirmed it was a fireball about a foot wide.
Yeah, the Meteoroid Environments Office says that actually if you were down in Las Cruces, that fireball looked as bright as the moon.
Did you see it? The moon turned a blood-red hue early Tuesday morning during a rare type of lunar eclipse.
Special light show in the sky this morning. It's an unusual kind of lunar eclipse called the blood moon, and you can see from this shot of the Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles that the moon looks red because it passed through the Earth's shadow, catching the light from all the Earth's sunsets.
It's the first of 4 happening about every 6 months, known as the lunar tetrad.
Conspiracy theorists link lunar eclipses to major historical events, like the fall of Constantinople in 1400.
In the past couple of weeks, Chalice has been rocked by a number of earthquakes.
In the last week, 3 magnitude 4 or greater earthquakes have rocked Chalice. Saturday's 4.9 didn't cause major damage, but people had plenty to say.
These incredible images show thick clouds and fumes of smoke spewing from one of Peru's most active volcanoes. Officials say the eruptions at the Ubinas volcano have now risen to more than 4,000 meters in height, prompting the government to declare a state of emergency for nearby villages. Last week, protective face masks were handed out to affected areas to protect residents from potentially dangerous volcanic ash, and health authorities have been monitoring water supply levels.
7.2 earthquake near a very popular vacation spot, Acapulco, Mexico. Families there to celebrate Easter, Americans there too on spring break. And it comes just weeks after that other big quake in California. So many wondering tonight what's going on.
It's amazing no one was hurt. Amateur footage showing a wall collapsing as the quake hit. A Good Friday procession brought to a standstill as telephone wires shook in the air. Even holy crosses needed to be held upright.
Is it my imagination, or have there been a lot of earthquakes recently?
We've had a cluster over the last month.
But she says there's a 100% chance of a major California earthquake eventually. California is overdue.
The U.S. Geological Survey says an earthquake struck late Saturday off Papua New Guinea's eastern coast with a preliminary magnitude of 7.5. After the quake, the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center issued a tsunami warning for Papua New Guinea and the Solomon Islands, but then canceled it. Saturday's incident is the latest in the series of seismic events in the region over the week.
Imagine this. Imagine driving at night and seeing this light up the sky. That's dash cam video posted on YouTube of what it looks like a meteor here. Just incredible footage. One of the most incredible scenes that we've seen.
Yeah, and don't we recall that it was Russia where there was once a meteor that actually made impact,
That's right.
made a big boom, etc. And I don't know if this says Russia is just that big or just that unlucky.
Next here this evening to that American neighborhood where they spent this Sunday trying to save an entire block of homes. This was the frightening scene from overhead near Orlando, Florida, the massive sinkhole there.
They're just popping up more and more and more.
She's absolutely right. Experts tell us that thousands of possible sinkholes are waiting to open up in Florida. Underground water washes away the limestone and the earth falls in.
This is a visualization of what it would look like if a city-destroying asteroid hit planet Earth. And scarily, the chance of an asteroid striking our planet is actually higher than scientists previously believed, according to the California-based B612 Foundation. The non-profit group has released the video in the hopes that it will press home the idea that impacts are more common than we think. The visualization rests on data from a global network that listens for nuclear weapon detonations, which between 2000 and 2013 detected 26 major explosions on Earth.
All right, large asteroids are hitting the Earth far more often than anyone realized. That new warning comes from a group led by former NASA astronauts. They say the only thing preventing a meteor from destroying a major city is blind luck.
An American town on edge this evening, a giant crack in the earth there, a slow-motion disaster. A landslide in one home there is now cut in two.
Time-lapse video shows pieces of shale, clay, and mud slowly moving down the hillside. Over a period of weeks, the cracks crept beyond the house, downhill, and then ruptured this Walgreens parking lot. The landslide may have been triggered by unusually heavy snow in the Rockies, as well as construction in the area.
At least 3 people are dead and 2 are missing after weekend floods in Romania. Heavy rainfall coincided with melting snow hitting the south the hardest, where several rivers burst their banks and roads were cut by landslides. Bulgaria and Serbia were also hit, with the latter warning the situation is critical in several municipalities.
Some frightening moments last night for people along BC's coast. A powerful 6.6 earthquake struck just off Vancouver Island. There was no major damage, but as Jill Bennett reports, it's another reminder what could happen when you live on the West Coast.
The quake, measuring 6.6, struck off the coast southwest of Port Hardy, 11 kilometers below the surface. It was felt more than 570 kilometers away in Kelowna, BC.
A puzzling case of hundreds of thousands of dead Asian carp found floating in the Cumberland and Tennessee rivers has been eating at fish and wildlife experts.
It's believed to be the largest fish kill ever involving Asian carp.
Paul Reister believes a virus is killing these fish. All but a few of the dead fish were silver carp.
A massive sandstorm has swept through northeastern China, causing over 100 fires and extensive damage. Turning the middle of the day into night, visibility has been reduced to nearly zero in some states, dropping to freezing temperatures in some areas. The huge sandstorm has caused chaos and havoc, knocking down power lines, uprooting trees, and starting fires in this year's most powerful storm to hit China's Xinjiang region.
A 6.3 magnitude earthquake has struck off the coast of the Pacific island nation of Tonga, but experts say there is no threat of a tsunami. The undersea quake hit at about 7 p.m. local time, with reports the impact could have been felt by people more than 600 kilometres away.
3 days of heavy rains followed by flash flooding have Afghans salvaging everything they can and scrambling for help. The floods have killed more than 100 people and left thousands homeless. The rains and floods have swept through 4 of the country's provinces. Government officials expect the death toll to rise in the coming days.
Australia was treated to a partial solar eclipse on Tuesday, where the sky turned from day to night. There was also an annular eclipse going on at the same time. This is when the moon only obscures part of the sun, leaving a ring of fire. But this was only visible from remote parts of Antarctica.
25 million Americans are still on alert in the worst tornado outbreak of the season. A long and dangerous night ahead. Just hours ago, this was the scene, a large twister striking Tupelo, Mississippi, estimated at 1 mile wide. And this is after dozens of tornadoes were bearing down in the Midwest and South. And one of the most powerful roared through the outskirts of Little Rock, Arkansas, carving a trail on the ground for 40 miles. And leaving images like these, stunned families who barely survived their shattered homes, reduced to splinters.
More than 130 twisters reported since Sunday.
Even the emergency service is powerless to come to the aid of those in need. Thousands of people have been forced from their homes. Mississippi, along with Alabama, was hardest hit. The next wave of storms threatens millions in populated areas, here in parts of the South already devastated, and in several more states far to the northeast.
Night, relentless storms and drenching rains lashing the East Coast, from New England all the way down to Florida.
This is the Florida Panhandle after the biggest rainfall there in decades. Hundreds of people had to be rescued from cars and houses. In Pensacola, where the rain set a record, part of the scenic highway was washed away. The flooding is blamed for at least one death in all since Sunday. The storm death toll is at least 38, and thousands of homes have been damaged.
It was a relentless rainstorm that for most people between Mobile, Alabama and Pensacola, Florida, rivaled the most vicious of hurricanes.
More than 20 inches of rain fell in Pensacola in 24 hours.
These violent storms packed with lightning. At one point, more than 1,000 strikes per minute.
That 6 inches of rain, nearly 6 inches of rain in Pensacola last night in 1 hour, is almost a once in a 500-year event.
That heavy rain there. The problems tied to this flooding stretch well beyond Florida this morning, following a day of record rain up and down the East Coast. Let's go.
The tri-state area is waking up to a wet commute this morning after a night of non-stop rain. Philadelphia, New Jersey, and New York are now feeling the remnants of the same weather system that brought deadly tornadoes to the south just days ago. Weather caused hundreds of flight delays and cancellations in much of the Northeast, with Dulles Airport recording the wettest April day on record.
Your question, there is no question in my mind for the last 100 people on the planet who are not sure about climate change, or is it real. Unfortunately, whether East Coast, West Coast, halfway around the world, unfortunately we're going to see more and more of these kind of severe weather events.
Well, a desperate rescue is on after a landslide in a remote area of northeastern Afghanistan. The ground in the mountainous Argo district gave way after days of heavy rainfall. Whole villages are reported to now be buried.
The Afghan government has called the site in the Argo district of Badashan a mass grave. UN agencies and officials in the country have estimated that anywhere between 500 and 2,700 people were killed. Another 4,000 are believed to have been displaced after 300 homes were buried under up to 50 meters of earth and debris.
Streets have turned into rivers in parts of central Italy, and at least 2 people's deaths are being linked to the severe flooding in the Marche region after the river Cesano burst its banks. Weather forecasters are predicting more unsettled weather in the coming days.
A meteor falling from the sky. That's what footage captured by the dashboard camera of a police car in Canada appears to show. Some described it as having an orange tail, with many others saying they saw a flash of blue and heard a loud boom.
And we have some breaking news right now. An earthquake of 6 magnitude struck northern Thailand today, causing some damage to buildings and roads.
Knocking goods off shelves and shops, but there were no immediate reports of any casualties. The quake struck 17 miles southwest of the town of Chiang Rai. The U.S. Geological Survey disclosed it was felt in the Thai capital, Bangkok, and in neighboring Myanmar.
A strong earthquake shook southwest Mexico on Thursday, causing buildings to sway in the capital.
But no immediate reports of significant damage. The 6.4 tremor was captured in the studios of this TV station in the capital. It's the latest in a series of quakes to hit the Pacific coastline in Central and South America.
This is the second tremor in a month. On April 18th, a powerful 7.2 magnitude quake shook south and central Mexico.
The epicenter was just inland in Guerrero State, about 300 kilometers south of Mexico City.